Sorry, I'm just having a little bit of trouble with the technicalities. I'm not sure if this is working or not, but I'll assume that it is. Sorry, we got a little bit tied up with some technology things. I'm not sure what's happening with the present ban on TikTok in the US. So I think we're right on the other channels, Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. So I was a Perth, Australia doctor for 53 years. First of all working in hospitals, then for many years as a family doctor in the suburbs, doing all the things that family doctors did back then, which included helping 800 babies into the world, doing a lot of consultations, home and hospital visits, a lot of home visits, because in the early days people had 4 or 5 or 6 kids and only one car, and it was too difficult for mum to get to the surgery with the kids, so we did a lot of home visits. But eventually it ended up being mainly consulting, because whereas I had been doing a lot of appendicectomies and tonsillectomies and vasectomies and cuts and all sorts of things, that got taken over by specialists, and family doctors mostly did consulting and home and hospital visits. During my 53 years, 2 health problems became much bigger. One was diabetes, obesity and blocked arteries. What happened was that in my grandfather's days, people worked doing heavy physical work 50 or 60 hours a week, and they walked everywhere because there was no public transport, and a lot of people didn't have cars. Although my farmer grandfather, when he was 40, got a second-hand T-model Ford for £100 in 1915, so he walked a bit less after that. But they needed 3,000 to 4,000 calories of food a day to create the energy they need to do all that they did. And then more and more people worked at a desk, and I always worked at a desk as a student and then as a doctor. Well, some walking around of course, but I really only need about 1,500 calories a day. So most people were needing less and less calories, but at the same time we were getting more and more calories. This was mainly due to the fact that sugar became a gold mine for the food and drink manufacturers. 300 years ago, sugar was a rare luxury that only rich people could afford, but everybody who had it, tried it, loved it, the sugary sweet taste. And it was so popular that they started to mass produce it, started to crush sugar cane and sugar beet, and sugar became more and more plentiful and cheaper. People loved the taste, and it's addictive. If you do a ChatGPT, you'll find that sugar is as addictive as cocaine. So the food and drink manufacturers put it in everything. It's so cheap, it makes their products cheap, but it sells well because people love the taste and because it's addictive. And it's also easy for the food and drink manufacturers to transport and store and use. So we got more and more calories, and we needed less and less calories, and that resulted in more and more diabetes and obesity, and the sugar and the sugar that was turned into fat tended to block up arteries, and that caused heart attacks and strokes, and the arteries at the back of the eye got narrowed, so vision was often affected, and even quite a lot of dementia was due to poor circulation in the brain due to too many calories being converted into fat, and due to diabetes. So, and the other problem was more and more mental health problems, and then more and more addictions. We'd always had alcoholism and we'd always had tobacco, but in the late 1990s in Perth we had a terrible epidemic of heroin addiction, and hundreds, thousands of people were dying with it, with heroin overdoses. So I started to work 10 hours a week in an addiction clinic. And I wanted to know what caused addiction, but I couldn't find anyone working in the field of addiction who could tell me what caused addiction. I went to all the clinics addiction clinics in Perth and Sydney, and couldn't find anyone who could tell me what caused addiction. Then one day, in the addiction clinic I was working in 10 hours a week, I saw 15 heroin addicts, and I realized 5 of them had ADD, ADHD, and they were a mess, because most of them, none of them were being treated, and most of them didn't know that they had ADD. And I went carefully into their history, and it was clear that what had happened was they had had ADD, ADHD since early childhood. It had given them problems, made them problem children, and caused a lot of distress. When they got to school, they had a lot of trouble with schooling, and they became problem kids and copped a lot of flack, and they tended to leave school early with a poor education and have poor employment prospects, money worries, and so on. And the 3 main characteristics of ADD are poor ability to focus and concentrate, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. They're very impulsive. So they were sitting ducks, people pushing street drugs. And in their distress, if they couldn't get proper diagnosis and treatment, they often got street drugs, and the street drugs were all addictive. Mostly alcohol, heroin, and crystal meth, cocaine, and ice. So once I found that a third of the heroin addicts had ADD, I talked very carefully to all the new addiction patients, and I found that 19 out of 20, 95% of them had multiple seriously distressing mental health disorders which had driven them, when they couldn't get proper diagnosis and treatment, to seek street treatment. And the street treatment, of course, is always addictive. The street dealers only sell addictive stuff. The commonest problems were worry, anxiety disorders. So general anxiety, social anxiety, panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorder, and all sorts of phobias. Then there was sleep disorders. A lot of addicts had great difficulty sleeping, and they'd taken downers to help them to sleep. Downers like alcohol, addictive heroin, addictive painkillers, which were downers, and cannabis, and virtually all of the medicines for sleep and anxiety were addictive too. Originally it was the Valium, Seropax, Mogadon, and so on, and they were all addictive. And the treatment for sleep, they were all addictive. And the three main treatments for ADD, ADHD were addictive. That's dexamphetamine, Ritalin, and Adderall. So so there was the anxiety, worry disorders, sleep disorders, then major depression, bipolar disorder, ADD, ADHD, post-traumatic stress disorder, very low self-esteem, what I call IAD, irritability, anger disorder, and what I call PTEF, which is post-traumatic evil focus, when people have terrible things happen and they can't face them, and they divert their attention by thinking about terrible things that happen in other parts of the world, like Guantanamo Bay and the CIA, and what terrible things people are doing to women and children in some faraway places. So there were about, and then there was schizophrenia, and then there was autism. So there were about 8 conditions, and every addict had more than one. Most of them had 2 or 3 of those disorders, and I still always remember one poor middle-aged lady who had 5. What I realized then was that the reason why people weren't getting better from their addictions was that what caused the addictions wasn't being found and fixed. Addiction is, in 95% of cases, stage 4 mental illness. And I started to do what's called dual diagnosis. Dual diagnosis is diagnosing and treating the mental health issues at the same time as treating the addictions, and that worked so much better, and people, a lot of people got better with dual diagnosis. In fact, it was so successful that my little one-man clinic got me into a lot of trouble. The big health department 6-doctor clinic had a waiting list of 2 months. So if a heroin addict went to that clinic, they were told, come back in 2 months. And most of them didn't come back, because in 2 months they were either in hospital or in prison or in a cemetery, or successful drug pushers themselves affording to buy their drugs of addiction by selling drugs to other people. And my dual diagnosis was so successful that within 17 months of my clinic opening, the 8-week waiting list at the big health department clinic was 0, and they were very worried about their jobs, and it was embarrassing for them. So they just wrote me a letter without any warning or discussion and said, "You're not following our guidelines, so you can no longer prescribe Subutex and methadone, which were the treatments for heroin." Well, of course, I wasn't following their guidelines. I had to sit in on their clinics in order to learn how to treat addicts, and what I really learned was how not to treat addicts, and I would never work the way that they worked. But everything I did was legal, it was sensible, and every prescription that I gave them, an addict for Subutex or methadone, had to have health department approval. So they were approving what I was doing, but in the end they stopped me from doing it. So I had to go back to being a family doctor. And what I realized was that there was a terrible problem, and the problem was that there was never ever going to be enough mental health and addiction doctors to help all the people that needed help with mental health and addiction. And the mental health problems seemed to be getting more and more common, and addiction was certainly getting more and more common. Instead of just having tobacco and alcohol, which were bad enough, alcohol kills 3 million people a year in the world and ruins the lives of many times more than that. And tobacco kills 7 million people a year in the world and ruins the health of many more people than that. And there was never going to be enough mental health and addiction doctors to help all the people that needed all the help they needed. So eventually, as I realized this, I thought that 3 things needed to happen to solve this problem. The first was we had to have better tools for treating mental health and addiction. The second was people had to be able to help themselves. The better tools had to be tools that people could use themselves, so that if they could do quite a bit of the work, some could do 3/4 of what needed to be done, some could do half of what be needed, some could only do 1/4 of what. That would leave the mental health and addiction professionals time to do the rest of the work. And the third thing was that the treatment of mental health issues and addictions must start early. When you get a mental health problem early or an addiction early, it's 10 times easier to fix than when it's been going for years, and problems lead to problems which lead to more problems, and eventually people crash. And by the time they crash, they've got so many complicated and deep-seated problems that they're never going to get enough help. So gradually over the years I built up 7 tools. One tool was videos. It's necessary for people to not only know what the mental health diagnosis is that they've got, but also to understand that mental health issue, to understand the causes and what makes them worse and how to make them better. And there's no faster, easier, better, lower cost way of understanding mental health and addiction issues than watching the right videos. But my right videos 12 or 15 years ago were 7 to 15 minutes, and people stopped watching videos that length. So eventually I had to switch to making 1-minute videos, under a minute videos, TikTok type videos. And of course each 1-minute video could only cover one small part of mental health or addiction, so I needed a lot of them, and I made 50 and that wasn't enough, so then I made 70 and I ended up with about 100. And then I started to do live streaming, because a lot of people prefer to see actual live streaming discussion of mental health and addiction. And we can preserve 2-minute clips of live streaming. So now we've got several hundred under a minute videos and live streaming clips on various aspects that people can go on and watch. I'm very old and not good at technology, and I know how TikTok works, and we are connected to YouTube Shorts and to Instagram and Facebook and to X, but I'm not sure how they work and I'm not able to follow them up. I don't know how to talk to people live in live streaming, but what I do is every evening after I've finished doing the live streaming, I go right through all the new followers and all the likes and all the comments and try to answer as many questions and comments and criticisms as I can. So please, I'm very interested to know what people think, I would like you to, through whichever platform you're on or through our email address, which is healthestuff@gmail.com, healthestuff@gmail.com, would like you to send me your questions and comments and criticisms. In addition to 1-minute videos and live streaming, I had websites. The first website, or not the first, but the one I ended up with was mentalhealthvideos.a-to-z.com, mentalhealthvideos.a-to-z.com, and that was had all the videos listed and had a lot of information, but it was pretty long, and so eventually we realized we had to also have a short website. So now we also have a website called smilefixit.com, and on one page you can see the whole field covered, and there are links to everything, so you can just on that one page tap the link to the stuff that you are most interested in. And then we had to have an app. To speed the process up and try to deal with all the people who wanted dual diagnosis treatment, we had a 20-question checklist, which one of my assistants did with the patients before I saw them, and that saved me a lot of time and enabled me to see more people. We worked without a waiting list, because waiting lists are fatal for people with addiction problems. We saw everybody who came. If they wanted to make an appointment, we gave them an appointment, but if they just turned up, they'd wait until I had time and then I'd see them. And I found that 15 minutes with a patient, with an addict who wanted to be seen and wanted to make progress on the day that they wanted to make progress was better for them, much better for them than half an hour or 3/4 of an hour when it suited me. after they'd been waiting for days or weeks. So some days we saw 10 addicts, some days we saw 30 addicts, some days we had plenty of time, some days we had very little time, but the results with dual diagnosis were just far, far better. But eventually we realized that an app would be far better than the checklist, and the problem was that making an app is a lot of work and it's very expensive, and we couldn't do that for a long time. But about 18 months ago I was lucky enough to find a postgraduate university student who was very well qualified, and he helped me to make the Mental Fix-It app, which is free. You can go on an iPhone and find the App Store and click on the App Store icon, or on or find the Google icon on an Android and click on the Google icon, and you can download the free Mental Fix-It app in a few seconds. We finished it about a year ago, and it had 38 questions, and about every aspect of mental health and addiction, and you just had to tap your choice out of 3 possible answers for each question, and you could do that quickly. You didn't have to make up answers, you just had to tap one of 3 possible answers. So people go tap, 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 and do the 38 questions in about 10 minutes. And I thought that was okay, but everything's got to be fast these days, and people didn't respond as well to that as we thought they should. So then we reduced it to 19 questions, which they could do in 5 minutes, and more people are downloading the Mental Fix-It app. Now it's faster, but we're now working on making the Mental Fix-It app a 2-minute app. My goal is for a troubled person to go a long way in 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, as that's how people want to go these days, very fast. So what you do is you whiz your phone out, you find the App Store or the Google Play icon, you tap it, you download the Mental Fix-It app, and when we've redone it, I mean, it's up at present in its 5-minute form, but in a month or two it'll be there in a 2-minute form, and so a few seconds to download the app, 2 minutes to tap your answer, your choice of answers to 12 questions, and you get an instant report as soon as you tap your choice of answers to the last question. The app brings up a report on your phone screen, and the phone tells you which 6 of our 1-minute videos to watch, and you can watch those 6 1-minute videos immediately in 6 minutes. So in 10 minutes you've gone from 0 to having a very good idea of what your underlying mental health problems are, what they all are, and which are the most important, got the highest scores, because they're all scored, and you understand a lot about them because you watch videos especially on your particular problems. Different people have different problems and different needs and different resources and backgrounds, and the app matches the 6 most helpful videos for your particular problems that you've got that are the highest scoring ones. So that's 4 tools: videos, live streaming, the Smile Fix It website, the Mental Fix It app, which is now 5 minutes but will become 2 minutes, and then there's powder medicines. One of the problems with medicines, most medicines, they're too slow. When you've got a mental health problem or an addiction problem, you need medicine that works very quickly. If you're getting into a situation where you're starting to panic or to have general anxiety or social anxiety or post-traumatic stress disorder or whatever, you need a medicine that works quickly, and it mustn't be addictive. So what I found was that tablets and capsules which you swallow take half an hour to an hour to go right down into your gut and start to be absorbed and start to work, and 1 to 2 hours to work strongly. Half an hour to an hour to start working, and you've usually got to get them out and get a drink to wash them down, and so it might be 3/4 of an hour before you start to get relief, and you want relief as quickly as possible. What I found was that if I ground up the tablets and people dropped the powder medicine on their tongue and sucked it, didn't swallow it, it got into their bloodstream in 5 minutes. Your tongue is pink or red because the blood vessels are so close to the surface, and if you drop thousands of tiny grains of medicine on your tongue and suck it, it gets into the bloodstream and starts working in 5 minutes, and it's working strongly in 10 to 15 minutes, and that helps to prevent a lot of mental health suffering, and it helps to reduce the taking of addictive drugs. And it's better than that. The 6th tool was pocket powder medicine dispensers. So you have the powder medicine in your pocket in a dispenser, and anytime, anywhere, you can whiz it out and drop the powder on your tongue in seconds. Even driving the car, standing in a queue, sitting at your desk, whatever you're doing, just as soon as you feel a mental health issue starting, or you start to crave something that you don't want to take, or you want to take less of, just whiz the medicine out and drop it on your tongue, suck and hold on, and it'll greatly reduce the mental suffering and the addiction craving. But it's even better than that, because if the powder medicine tastes very nice, you soon get taste conditioning. You've heard of Pavlov's dog and conditioning. With Pavlov's dogs, when he gave them meat, they salivated as they were eating the meat, and then after he'd been feeding them a meat for long enough, as soon as they heard his footsteps in the passage coming, they'd start to salivate because they knew they were going to get meat. Well, it's like that with if the powder medicine tastes very good, you drop it on your tongue, your taste buds are at the back of your tongue, and your body starts to connect that nice taste with feeling better, and that soon creates taste conditioning. And then as soon as you drop the nice tasting powder medicine on your tongue, you get a placebo effect. You start to get better. It's not a phony effect, it's a real effect. You really get better. It's because your body with taste conditioning starts to get better as soon as you get the taste, and it's working strongly in 5 to 10 minutes. And it's even better than that, because it's easy to mix 2, 3 or 4 powder medicines together, because people with mental health issues, serious mental health issues, have rarely only got one problem. I'd say very few have only got one problem. If they've got anxiety, they've got depression, they've got ADD, they've got anxiety and depression. If they've got post-traumatic stress disorder, they've got depression. If they've got ADD, they have multiple things. And with powder, you can mix 2, 3 or 4 powder medicines together, so that when they take that powder, it stops 1, 2 or 3 mental health suffering. It stops the craving for a particular drug, and it helps to reduce the underlying mental health disorder, because mental health disorders all depend on flows of electricity and chemistry. Every feeling, every thought you have is the result of your brain having an electrical trigger and sending electrical messages down your nerves, or your brain and your glands producing chemicals which flow in the blood to every part of your body and cause the feelings and the thoughts and the actions that you have. And every time you do one of those things, you repeat one of those things, it gets stronger. But every time you reduce it or block it, it gets weaker. And if you can, every time a problem starts, you can stop it or reduce it quite quickly, it starts to get weaker. And then you can postpone it and reduce it more, and then it gets weaker still. And that helps a lot of people to become mentally healthy and happy, and to reduce and then stop addictions. And happiness is so important. What I discovered in my 53 years of being a registered medical practitioner, I'm retired now, so I'm not registered, but what I discovered was that the 5 or 6 most important things for having a good life were, firstly, good mental health; secondly, good relationships; thirdly, high endorphins. Endorphins are over 20 chemicals we produce in our brain which help to relieve pain and distress. Endorphins is short for endogenous morphines, because they are morphine type chemicals that we produce in our brain, and those endorphins manage your immune system. So endorphins make reduce pain, reduce distress, make you feel better. They're feel-good chemicals, and they also boost your immune system, and your immune system fights infections, allergies, inflammation, autoimmune diseases and cancers, and that makes you healthier, and being healthier makes you happier. So that's mental health, good relationships, high endorphins, strong immune system, and no addictions. If you have got good mental health and good relationships, you're not going to become an addict. If you become an addict, if you have got mental health issues that are very distressing, and you can't find the help that you need, or you get something addictive, you're going to become an addict. And when you become an addict, you're going to be miserable, and your endorphins are going to be low, and your immune system is going to be weak, and you can be struck down with terrible illnesses. So important to be happy. Happy and health go together. Unhappiness and ill health go together. And something that I've been learning about recently, which I should have known more about long ago, is what's called transgenerational trauma. One of the mistakes we make is we think that everybody is a separate person, and they're not. We are all part of two streams. We're part of our mother's life stream, and we're part of our father's life stream, and there's nothing more powerful in the whole of our life than our mother's influence. And there are no perfect mothers, and there are no perfect fathers, and there are no perfect families, and there are no perfect homes, no perfect neighborhoods, no perfect schools. So there are, every child suffers. Some are lucky and don't suffer very much. Some have terrible suffering. I just hate to think about it. And they get, starting in the first year of life, or even when they're in their mother, as a reaction to how she's feeling. If she has a lot of stress, a lot of worry, a lot of fear, that can affect the baby even before the baby's born. And so they develop feeling habits, worry, anxiety habits, sadness, depression habits, irritability, anger habits. They develop unhelpful, nasty emotional habits, and they develop poor relationship habits. In my family, sadly, we had a catastrophe in our family. My mother had my younger brother on the 5th of January. On the 29th of January, a close uncle dropped dead from a heart attack at the age of 51. On the 21st of February, her baby brother, who was so important to her, died because he was working in a remote mine and he got appendicitis, and he didn't manage to have the appendix operation for 2 days, and it was too late and he died. And that upset my mother so much that it affected members of my family, and that happens in so many families. The two most important things, our feelings and our relationship habits that start so early, can be disturbed by bad things that happen in the family. And the book that I found so helpful is called "It Didn't Start With You." It didn't start with you. So many times the difficulties, the mental health disturbances that people have, and the difficulties with relationships that they have, are due to things that have happened in the family. And as I said, there are no perfect mothers, no perfect fathers, no perfect families. So everyone has suffering in childhood and has some residual problems from that. We make the mistake of thinking that only a few people have mental health problems. Well, I believe now, from what I've seen, that everybody has mental health problems. And one of the most important things you can do is to try to become clear what your mental health problems are, what the good things and bad things that happen in your family with your parents and your grandparents and their parents and your uncles and aunties and cousins, and what disasters happen that have caused problems, and to get clear about what the problems are that you developed in childhood, and to get them fixed as early as possible. And that's what's motivated me to develop my 7 tools. Actually, there's 8 tools and another couple coming, but you can now, in a few seconds on your phone, download the Mental Fix It app. It'll take you 5 minutes to answer the questions. Then you'll get an instant report. The report will tell you which 6 of our 1-minute videos you should watch, and watch them over and over again whenever you can, and watch the live streaming bits that you find interesting as well, and look at the websites, either the mental health videos AZZ.com website, which is longer, or the very compact, quick SmileFixit.com website. And on the SmileFixit.com you can just tap links to whatever you want. Then there's the powder medicines. We have got about 8, 2, 3 or 4 combination powder medicines, but you have to, that's a bit tricky. You have to get a prescription from your doctor, but you can read about them, and you can get them made up by a compounding pharmacy, and the pocket powder medicine dispensers we can send you in the mail. Just look up how to do that at SmileFixit.com. And the other tool, 7th tool, is the heartbeat meditation aid. Meditation is so helpful for people with mental health and addiction problems. But the people who would most benefit from meditation often find it very difficult to learn to meditate. Meditation is a habit. It's a habit where you focus on something and you forget all your problems and have a little break, and that break gives you time to relax and refresh, and to come back fighting and strong and happier. And usually what the meditation teachers teach you to do is to focus on a word. They give you a word and you just keep repeating that word. Repeat, 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 and forget everything else. But if you've got a lot of stress and worry, your mind wanders quickly back to your troubles, and you refocus and refresh, refresh, refresh. Then or they teach you to focus on your breathing, and focusing on your breathing is the best thing in the long term. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Focus on your breathing and forget everything else. And that gradually changes your brain. It gives rise to epigenetic changes in how your brain works. It helps to switch on helpful genes and switch off unhelpful genes. But a few years ago I decided that listening to your heart would be a much stronger and better diversion than trying to focus on your breathing or a word at first. So I just got a cheap stethoscope, cut it short, you put it on like this, and that's the hearing part. You just put that down under your clothes over the upper left part of your chest, and you can hear your heart beating loud and strong, and it's very interesting and attention grabbing. And if you do that for a month or two, you'll learn, you'll get a basic meditation habit, and then you can start to do it with focusing on your breathing, and eventually you can just flick into meditation. If you've got a minute, you're driving the car, you come to the red lights, you just stop for a minute and you meditate. And you're standing in a queue and you meditate, or it's lunch break and you just sit there and your meditation is so helpful. And if you need a heartbeat meditation aid, just email us. We can send you one for $25 plus postage anywhere in the world. Well, I think that might be enough for one day. So today is Wednesday. I normally do the live streaming on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday at 7 p.m. Perth time, which is 9 p.m. Sydney and Melbourne time, 7 a.m. New York time, 4 a.m. Los Angeles time, and somewhere around there London time. And sometimes as many as 20% of our viewers are from America, and as many as 10% are from the UK, and some are from Sweden and Denmark and so on. So I'm now doing the Sunday session at 9 a.m. Perth time, which will be Saturday evening in the Northern Hemisphere, and I hope that will be better. And sometimes I get tangled up with the technology because my tech assistant is in New York at the moment doing a course, but usually he helps me. So yes, please let me know your questions, your comments, and your criticisms, how we could do things better. And we must develop tools and a system so that everybody can use the tools and can do self-help and can start to work on their problems as soon as they start. And the people, the things that they can't do, there'll be enough psychologists and counselors and psychiatrists to help them. So, all the best.